Hey guys, what's going on? UF8, UC1, my favorite features so far. I've done a couple of videos, got a lot of questions on them, some good feedback, some great ideas, and today I thought I'm going to share my favorite features on the UF8, on the UC1, and what lies in between, which is this 360 software accessible through these buttons here. And I think that is a key point. So my favorite feature number one would be that 360 software. This gives you a bird's eye console view of everything that's going on in your session in terms of EQing, in terms of compression, in terms of your channel. Logic doesn't do that normally, natively. Pro Tools doesn't do that natively, and so forth. So this should actually be implemented in every DAW, but it isn't for some reason. I'm a little bit surprised about that. So anyways, we have this, and what my favorite feature is the speed of navigation here. I really like it. See how quickly it follows suit. I want the drums, here we go. I want the piano, here we go. I want the lead guitar, here we go. That is really, really fast. This allows me to stay in the zone for working with the basics, and that's what it's all about. I don't have to look at many things. I don't have to constantly look up and double check. I can keep my head down here and occasionally see that bird's eye view. Now, full disclosure, I can take this away immediately and go back to my timeline. Let me tell you how I work. To me, this is on the right, and on the left I have my buses. In the center I have my timeline, and on the right I typically have all my channels, and then I would overlay as needed the 360 software that can just come and go as needed. It does not affect the functionality. So feature number one that I like, it's their 360 software. It's the best implementation of a software that I have seen so far. Just the fact that they say like, hey, we have a button here. My favorite, number one button is the magnification button here. So is this here. It is like leaning into the console. That is pretty cool. We can do that with the mouse. We can do that also with Option Tab, but having this here on the UC1, so cool and helpful. I do use it. Okay, what other feature, since we are talking a little bit about the UC1, is there? Well, one of them for me is the ability to switch between EQs. This is the SSL 4000E EQ. The rest, if we don't engage this, which one is it? It's the XL 9000K. So yeah, we have a super modern console, and we have sort of that iconic SSL vintage console. The ability to turn these things off, bus compressor off from within the controller, is one of my favorite features as well. To be able to control which bus I'm looking at, to be able to control quickly which track I'm looking at, that is super cool. These knobs are super fast. I like it. I also do like this here. It gives you a good real world representation. Super cool. The other feature I really like is that I'm able to gain stage. I would normally do that with Hornet Auto Gain Mark IV, automatically put it on each track. That is still one of my preferred ways of doing it. But if this is inserted as my first plugin, I can gain stage right here. I'm getting to know each track I'm working with. So why not? And then flipping through the buses, the bus compressors very quickly, that is super convenient. All right, moving on to the UF8. Favorite feature would be to be able to program these buttons here. So many people say like, hey, wait a minute, it doesn't have a start, stop, and so forth. Well, it does here. Page 2, you leave it engaged here, you have a play, right? You have a stop. Here's a play lock, here's a marquee, here's a back loop. Well, these are custom. That is part of that favorite feature is any key combination that you can dream up here, any sequence, any weird things that you're doing with this here, you can record it into here. So for example, Command U. What is Command U? That means marquee, right? Marquee. Let me get rid of the software here. So marquee, I would press Command and then select, for example, this area. I click on marquee. Marquee loop would be the better name. I gave it that name. Completely fine. Back loop, forward loop is I'm moving the loop backward and forward at the same loop length. That is something I found important for me. Some people may not need that. Play lock, play location would be like, for example, I have a loop here, right? A cycle area, I should say, and I'm working on this region here. If I hit play with cycle engage, it will always go back to this. If I hit play lock, it'll play us right from there, right? So these are things that are not necessarily specific to this, but it makes it easy. Number two, markers, right? So also my favorite features is working with markers. I have a few markers created here. The only thing is you need two hands for doing it, but so what? You know, what's so bad about that? We can create a marker right here. We can create a marker without rounding it. That means like it goes to where it actually is rather than going to the nearest beat or bar. We can delete markers, and then I can jump to markers right here. See that? We can jump, and that is so super helpful to navigate a session, chorus, verse, bridge, and so forth. There are very few limits. The limits is really what the DAW is doing. So you can, for example, here something I programmed markers 1, 2, 8. So I can jump between 1 and 8 in different positions as I wanted. That's something I thought is helpful to me. The other thing is, of course, plugin navigation, right? So I'm using the UC1 for native channel strip 2. Everything else, all the other plugins, I'm controlling with this, with the UF8, but I'm doing it with plugins that have few controls. No big channel strips, no Pro Q3, no FabFilter stuff with tons of controls, because, as White C always says, they are meant to be moved by the mouse, and he's absolutely right. So I will work with what I got and set up my session so it is convenient. So many great EQs. So for example, on this channel here, let's open this up. Very easy. You want that low boost and low attenuation at the same time? Here we go. Very easy to do. Very fairly simple plugin. We can do the frequencies here. Notice that they are flipped for some reason. I don't know why that is. That is a logic. That's a logic thing, but it is fairly simple. If we could line this up, we would have for each window one frequency band. We can slap that across an entire session and work very quickly. As you move to the next track, this will open for the next track. Here we go. UAD Empirical Labs Distressor. Okay, input, right? Attack, release. So super intuitive, right? I don't need to pick up the mouse and do it. I can keep my hands on there. Okay, so what is the cool thing about it? Well, the cool thing is that it's auto-mapped automatically. I didn't have to do anything. It basically reads the plugin left to right and then maps it across, you know, 1 page, 2 page, 3 pages, as many banks of 8 as you may need. So therein lies the complication a little bit, because, for example, if you have something that is super complicated, the J37, if we go with the J37, those are 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. Some plugins have 8 pages, like Andrew Shep's Omnichannel. No, I would not control it with this. So choose your plugins wisely. Eventually, you'll still have to pick up the mouse. But for the most part, I'm able to carve out a sensical workflow that works for me personally. Also, another feature is the focus feature, and I like that quite a bit. But I like it with my left hand by using the trackpad. I navigate over I navigate over the parameter and then turn the knob. So instead of doing this with the mouse, right hand, I'm right-handed, and then jumping, right? People will say, well, you can just use the mouse for that, and they're absolutely right. But I can engage my left hand and then just hover over the parameters that I want to change. That's a refreshing way of working. I guess one of the main things is that this is a very customizable control surface. Many options to work. You can flip the faders, you can fine-tune things, meaning working in finer increments. You can control the sends to effects. So there's a bunch of things. And I also like the feel of this here. It's also one of my favorite parts. I really enjoy navigating back and forth with it. So now another thing is like, okay, now I have a session that's maybe a few more, more than 20 tracks. Some people say, hey, I have 200 tracks. I need to navigate top to bottom really quickly. Well, check this out here. This isn't so fast with the mouse, right? It's a little bit faster with a trackpad where you can just throw things around, at least on a Mac. But there's another way of doing it. It's with the banks. Look at that. I can go with my bank from the top to the bottom very quickly. 1, 2, so 2 seconds, quite a bit faster than with the mouse. Another way of doing it is, of course, if you scroll like so, that is a slower way of doing it. But like many control surfaces, you can also go in these banks. That is not a new concept. I think most of them have it. Of course, the other feature that I really like is being able to engage the latch, the trim, the touch, write, read, and so forth. That is not specific to UF8 at all, but I'm glad I have it. Okay, and so what is the last feature that I really like? Well, it's the back of both units having an adjustable stand. So it means I can adjust the height of these babies. I can have them come up pretty high and I can make them pretty flat. A lot of devices that I bought have no adjustments at all. You have to get some weird laptop stand or you have to mount it in a weird way. This comes pre-packaged with feet that are highly adjustable. All right, this concludes a bunch of my favorite features for the UC1 and the UF8. Let me know what yours are, and yeah, I'm sure this list is gonna grow or change, but right now it looks pretty interesting. Massivebeatzz out.